Okay, hi. So, before I before you get into what you came here for, I initially made this video to what's it called? I made it for like my personal archives, like for me to watch when I'm older and just be like, wow, this is what I was thinking when I was 19. Interesting, interesting. But I've decided, I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna post it because I think it's interesting and I'd like to hear people's opinions on it. So if you're seeing this, just know that if I sound like completely like I'm making no sense sometimes, or like my words are getting really jumbled up, I'm a bit confused because I didn't really film this with the idea of I want other people to watch this. So yeah, if something doesn't make any sense or I'm jumbling up my words a lot, it sounds like a bunch of word vomit. Please do forgive that. That's why. Anyway, other than that, enjoy. Feel free to listen to this in the background because it's quite lengthy. It's quite long. I did not expect myself to speak for this long, but I had so much to say. Like all of this was off the dome. I was just every time I give a point, I'm like, wait, I have another point. I have another point. Anyway, yeah, that's basically it. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, hello. I've been in my room. I've been watching this video for, I think this is the second time I'm watching specifically this part of the Jubilee video, one atheist versus 25 Christians, featuring Alex O'Connor. Um, yeah, the part that I was watching is the part of humans of suffering. What his claim was, sorry, let me just read the claim again. I want to read the exact claim. Suffering makes God's existence unlikely. I like how particular he is with his words because he's very good at arguing. And I think those are very private. I those words that he chose are very he chose them for a very particular reason. The suffering makes God's existence unlikely, right? He didn't say it makes God evil or it makes God not real. He just said it makes his existence unlikely. I like very nice wordplay there. Clever man. And that's where I'm gonna leave it. Anyway, because I've been watching this video, I've just started like talking to myself and spiraling about this entire religion and just being like, wait, like this is low-key a scam. It's a scam that has worked so well for thousands of years. For thousands, it has worked for centuries. And I'm just like, wow, like this is a scam that like people can get kicked out of their homes for not believing in this religion. Like that's how good this scam is. That's how dedicated people have become to this thing. To the point like you can actually get people get kicked out their kids for not believing in this thing or for doing something that their book says is wrong. Like people do that and it's so jarring to me. You don't see how there's something wrong with you if there is something in the world that can make you treat the person you are supposed to raise, the person that you chose to create, give birth to, and raise, that it can make you kick them out of your home. You don't see that there's something wrong with you. You don't see that there's something seriously wrong with you if you can do that to someone. You don't see that there's a problem. You think you're actually, in fact, you think you're so moral and morally supreme. That's what you think. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about something that so as I was watching the video, I don't remember what I think someone mentioned the creation. I'm just gonna give you my thought process of just what I've basically been ranting to myself about here for like an hour. So someone mentioned the creation story, and then it took me to I'm opening my tabs in order of how I search them up. The first thing that I searched is who wrote Genesis because they mentioned the creation story of like you know how the world came to be according to the Bible. Um, the book of Genesis. Oh yeah, so who wrote Genesis? That's what I came to because I was like, actually, I'm really curious. Who wrote the book of Genesis? I was really, really curious to see who wrote Genesis. So we can kind of get an idea of like, because I realized I don't know who wrote the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis does not explicitly name its author. That was the AI overview. So I went to Wikipedia on the book of Genesis and let me just read to you. It actually made me laugh. I was like, wait, this is actually ridiculous. Like this is ridiculous. Like we have based our entire worldview on this. The in the beginning, wait, sorry. The book of Genesis, um, I guess in the beginning is the Latin translation for Genesis. So Liber Genesis, that's how it's said in Latin, is the first book of the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Old Testament. The Hebrew name It's taken directly from the first word, so beginning. Um, taken directly from the first word. Oh, okay, okay. The primary narrative of Genesis includes a legendary. So I went and googled legendary. A legendary. I'll tell you what legendary means in a minute. Legendary account of the creation of the world, the early history of the human race, and the origins of the Jewish people. In Judaism, the theological importance of Genesis centers on the covenants linking God to his chosen people and the people to the promised land. So God to the chosen people, people to the promised land. And then I'm gonna just scroll down a bit to this other part that I saw. I was like, wait, what? um like like other ancient Israelite texts, the book of Genesis originally circulated anonymously. Based on scientific interpretation of archaeological, genetic, and linguistic evidence, mainstream biblical scholars consider Genesis to be primarily mythological rather than historical. Cool. I said I was going to go to read the definition of legendary. No, I just saw here when it says the primary narrative of Genesis includes a legendary account, and I was like, legendary? Because I guess to me, the colloquial way in which we use legendary means like famous or whatever, but legendary also means fabled or mythical. So pertaining to ancient myths, folklore, or fictional lore. Yeah, so legendary can also mean that as well. Um, a legend, yeah, yeah. So anyway, to me, I was just like, wait, this is crazy, right? And it makes so much sense actually that most people don't view this book as like a historical book because to me it has never made any sense to me. And then I started talking about the story of the beginning of like Adam and Eve and all that stuff and like the fallen world. Yes, the video that I'm watching right now, someone brought up the fallen world, and I was like, okay, this is really really interesting. I want to talk about this. I mean, the fallen, the whole thing about the fallen world, it just made me like start spiraling, and then I went to the Book of Genesis, and then yeah, so then I was talking about the fallen world because to me, the idea of the fallen world, it's just it has never made sense to me, even in Sunday school as a kid. It never really made any sense to me as to how it is that um we as human beings deserve to die and deserve to be punished and we deserve to go to hell because of a what's it called? Because of the actions. I don't want to call it a mistake, and I'll get to that. Because of the actions of two people who were deceived, right? So let's actually start with that. Two people who were deceived years ago, centuries ago. I don't know how long it was, but I think it's safe to say centuries ago, right? I think that's safe and correct. Centuries ago. How am I to blame for that? Why do I deserve to die? Why I don't believe that. I don't believe that I deserve to die because of that. I just don't like I'm so sorry. Oh my god. Okay. And I was just thinking about the whole story of Eve and how she got deceived by the snake. So this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And hold on, let me put you on this. Oh god. I hope you cannot hear that loud car outside right now. This is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And Eve is told you can't eat from this tree. You can eat from any other eat Adam and Eve, sorry. They're both told you can eat from any other tree in this garden, but you can't eat from this tree. The knowledge, keep that in mind, the knowledge of the good and evil. Which means that I guess that Adam and Eve were in a state of consciousness, but not they're not fully conscious of like the world entirely. My point. Let me get to my point. My point is the fact that there's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil means good and evil already existed in the world before Adam and Eve ate of this tree, right? Because this tree, what it does, I guess it like unlocks, like for lack of better words. I'm just imagining like we're in some mythical story because that's how I read the story. It's very mythical to me. Anyway, we're in some they maybe haven't unlocked this skill set yet where they can identify and discern between good and evil, right? So good and evil exist. Because I feel like the name of this tree just implies that good and evil exist. But Adam and Eve, as human beings, do not have the knowledge of good and evil. Because, I mean, clearly it's very obvious that good and evil exist because we have God, who is, I guess, good, and the serpent, who is bad, right? So good and evil exist. They just don't have the knowledge of it. And then the snake comes and tempts Eve, and rather lies to Eve, sorry, and tells her that if she eats from this tree, she will. God tells them that if they eat from the tree, they will die. But the snake comes and tells Eve that if you eat from this tree, you're not gonna die. You're just going to become powerful like God, and He doesn't want you to become powerful like Him. And Eve was like, really? And the fact that that would even entice her, I feel like for temptation to work, right? I'm just thinking here, like for a temptation to work, you already have to have an idea of something is bad for you and you shouldn't do it, but it still looks very appealing, right? I feel like that just implies that good and evil exist. I mean, that you already know that good and evil exist. You're already aware of what is good and what is bad for you. I don't know. Maybe I'm understanding this wrong, or like I don't know. But yeah, for the snake to be like, yeah, eat from this tree, and Eve, because it will make you good like God, and I mean smart. It will make you wise like God, and then Eve being like, yeah, I do want to be wise like God. Like I don't, for her, yeah, for God to say don't eat from this tree or you will die. How do they know that dying was a bad thing, right? Or why would they already interpret dying as being a bad thing? Because again, they don't know about good and evil. So for Eve to even be able, for the serpent even to come and tell her that no, Eve, if you eat from this tree, you're not going to die. You're going to become wise like God. How does Eve even know which one of these options is the good thing and which of them is the bad thing, right? You get what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that Eve could have already even had that, could have been tempted like that and deceived like that, because it implies that she kind of already knew that death is the bad thing and becoming wise is the good thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching here, but like to me, that doesn't really make any sense that she would see it like that. Like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Tempting offer. Like, I don't know. How would you be tempted if you don't know what is good and what is bad? I feel like it doesn't really make any sense, but okay. So yeah, if she eats from it, she will die. So they eat from it and then whatever, whatever. And then after, I think we all, if you don't know the story of Adam and Eve, you should actually read the book of Genesis. It's an interesting book. Oh, not the whole book. Don't read the whole book. It's kind of boring. Read like the first 3, 4 chapters. Yeah, because I think that's where the story ends. I believe it ends chapter 4. I'm not quite sure. I haven't read Genesis in a minute, but yeah. Um, what was I getting into? So after that, I started getting into this whole thing of like even let me get even Adam short because I think her name is coming up more than Adam's. Even Adam eating the fruit makes the world for a fallen world, and we have now as human beings we are a bit disconnected from God because of what they did. And to me, that's another thing that I always think about, and I'm just like, bro, what are we genuinely saying? Like, what are we genuinely saying? So hold on, give me a minute to organize my thoughts because there was something else I connected to this concept of sin, and then just give me like 2 seconds to connect my thoughts really quick. Yes. So I remembered what I was talking about. Okay. So yeah. I also started talking about how like sin, just the concept of sin is like, what exactly is it? It's something that's never really made sense to me. Like, what exactly is sin? Is it the actions that we do that push us further and further away from God, or is it the state of the world? The world is in a sinful state, and no matter what you do, you are sinful until you do this thing called repentance, in which now you are not sinful anymore. Which is it, right? Because people, like let's fast forward to the New Testament for a little bit, because I think the New Testament is where a lot of Christians get their value system on what is sin and what is not. Um, a lot of Christians do dismiss the Old Testament, and I'm just like, how coincident? What's the word? I sound so slow right now. I sound so slow right now. I'm really trying to gather my thoughts here. It's such a coincidence because you want to talk about the Genesis story as being like that's how the world came to be, right? But the rules and the values that are there don't really apply to you because it was like before the Jesus died on the cross and then the covenant was broken or whatever. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, sure, sure. Let's go with that theory. But I want to talk about the New Testament because I feel like the New Testament really does this whole thing of telling. I'm trying to really think. Like, does the Old Testament really tell you don't do this, it's sin, do this because it's not sin? Okay, the Ten Commandments. Oh my god, the Ten Commandments, yeah, which is like the holy grail for a lot of Christians, right? Like God before anyone else, don't have any other gods, father and mother, don't commit adultery, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't envy, all the things. Let's say don't lie. I don't know if don't lie is a commandment. I'm not sure. Could be. It makes sense if it is. I'm not really sure, but the others I'm very sure of. Sorry, I'm drinking a lot of water. Um, but yeah, I started thinking now about like how them eating the fruit made the world sinful, and it's just very interesting to me because what exactly about them eating the fruit, like what exactly does this now sin thing mean, right? Because if sin is like the actions that we do that push us further and further away from God, and we need to stop sinning in order to be closer to Him, then how does what they did generally affect us? Shouldn't we all now be given a tree and be told, like, eat from it? If you don't, good for you, you get to stay in this paradise, and if you do, then damn, you're now damned to the world that Adam and Eve are in. Like, shouldn't that be the case? Like, shouldn't we all now at conception or at whatever state they believe consciousness, comes to a human being, should we now be given that option, put in that same scenario at Adam and Eve, and be put with a tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and God see if we will be deceived by the snake, right? Because if it's an action thing, then why are we being punished for actions that they committed? If sin is purely an action thing, how can we be punished for their actions? That literally makes no sense. That literally makes no sense. And I think maybe there's some Christians, I don't know, because I know there's a verse somewhere in the Old Testament that says that like children will pay for the sins of their parents. That's why I guess because Adam and Eve are the first human beings, they are technically everyone comes from their lineage. Like, which again, that's just the dumbest thing ever. But everyone comes from the lineage, so I guess maybe Christians can try to justify it by saying like, yeah, because the Bible does say that you will um pa- children do pay for the sins of their parents, then yes, that's why Adam and Eve, we all, what's it called, are also punished for their sin because they're the first parents and it was the first sin, so it's like it's a big deal, so that's why we also, I'm sure there are Christians who have tried to argue that. I don't know, I've never heard that argument before. I'm just trying to think, like, I'm trying to, as I'm giving my points, I'm also trying to think of a counter from a Christian perspective, but I just feel like that's a stupid counter. I'm sorry, like, that's really dumb. I also like, oh my god, because like I said, if sin is inherently an action thing, then you should not be suffering for someone else's actions. That's just, it doesn't even make any sense. It's not logically consistent. It doesn't make any sense. That should not be happening, right? But let's say that sin isn't an action thing. It is a state of the world, right? Adam and Eve ate this fruit, and it's like the world had this like force field over it. And when they ate it, it's like that force field came off or something. And now the world is in this broken, fallen, sinful state. And if that's the case, then that means, okay, how I would imagine, if that is the case, like this is how the world is because of their actions, then, or rather because of them eating from that tree, so not necessarily because of their actions, but because someone ate of that tree and it just happened to be them, then now the world is just in this state because no one should have eaten from that tree. So it doesn't really matter who did it. The point is someone ate it and now we're in the state, and now that's why the world is just the way it is because someone ate from it and no one should have eaten from that tree. So now the world is the way it is. Because maybe when, if let's say Adam and Eve didn't eat from the tree and they had children and maybe one of the children now ate from it, the same thing would have still happened. But I'm wondering, would Adam and Eve still now be punished for something that someone after them did? Anyway, but yeah, let's say they eat from this tree and that's why now the world is fallen. And this fallen state just means that I guess human beings, no matter what we do, because we're in a fallen world, we are not as close to God as we should have, as He intended for us to be, right? So that means no matter what you do, whether you do all only good things, you never do any sins, like you have literally never done a sin in your life, or if all you do is sin, 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 all I do is sin, 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 no matter what, if all you do is sin, um, it actually doesn't really matter because the world is in a fallen state and there's something else you need to do to now reconcile with God, right? So it actually just, your actions don't really, I don't say they don't matter. They don't matter to God. They matter here on earth. I'm trying to really reason like a Christian here. They matter here on earth, but to God, they don't really matter. Because, or rather in a spiritual sense, they don't really matter. And to God, they don't really matter because there's this action that you need to do in order to reconcile with God. And that action is repentance. Repentance is another concept that I've never fully understood. If I'm being honest with you, I've never really understood the concept of repentance. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Like, what exactly is it? Is it me now doing only good things and saying now I'm only going to do good things, or is it a change of heart, or is it both? Again, it works hand in hand with sin. Is sin an action or a state of being, or is it both? And if it's both, I think, oh, then it's a lose lose, right? Because it's so weird, because if sin is just the state of the world, but also it's the actions that you do, that means you have to have a change of heart and a change of action, right? But like, you're a human being. You can't. No, 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 sorry. You have to have a. If sin is a state of being, a state of heart, and it's also a state of like the actions that you do, it's also the actions that you do, then that means repentance must be you changing your heart and also changing your uh actions. But if we live in the fallen world, if the world itself is just innately broken and fallen, then how are you supposed to do it? Now I know a lot of people will say, oh, that's why you have the grace of God, you have the Holy Spirit to help you, to guide you. That's like, oh my days, bro. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I feel like if it's both, it's just unfair that human beings have to also, now the rest of us human beings have to suffer and carry on this all these problems that come with Adam and Eve eating from the tree, because they did it and we didn't have a say, because the rest of us weren't there. It was just the two of them and a snake that was there to literally, first of all, actually it's a lose-lose situation. In fact, this is a system in which you can't even win in, because good and evil already existed, right? Like I've already mentioned this before, we've already established this. Good and evil already existed, because if the snake, which is a deceiver, a liar, came there to lie and deceive them, sorry, already existed, then that means bad already existed. It's inevitable. This was going to happen anyway. So it's actually just kind of crazy. Like, you already live in a system. You are trying to beat a system that was not created for you. If this is in fact the way that the world was designed, I obviously don't subscribe to this idea because it makes absolutely no sense. Uh, but like, I'm just saying, like, if this is actually how the world is, like, genuinely, that is so ridiculous. It is so crazy to me that it's both an action thing. I'm just really curious. I wonder if there's like a what's it called? A sect. Is that the word? What's the word where it's like different branches of a religion? Different branches of a religion. Hold on. Give me like a minute. Hold on, let me search it. Different bran branches. I can't spell. Oh my goodness. Of a religion. What are they called? What's that word called? What's it called? Denomination. There we go. So are there different denominations that maybe believe in sin as being actions, and then there's some that believe in sin as being a state of being? Is there some ideas of Christianity that subscribes to it being both? I'm just curious to see here, because again, if there are different denominations, right, then I don't know. I feel like for me, just the concept of there being different denominations of this religion is just fat proof that, like, it is not the quote way, truth, and life, as John 14:16, is it 14:6, is it 14:16 or 14:6, says that this is the way, truth, and life, no one can come to the Father except this. Yeah, BS, because you guys can't even agree on this, right? Like, you can't even agree on what is this quote truth. Like, you can't even agree. I'm actually just very curious to see that. Actually, let's search that. De Christian de no sorry nations that believe sin is an action. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'll just Google that. Most Orthodox Christian denominations view sin as an action, a deed, or a mission that defies God's law. These traditions emphasize that an individual's accountability is tied to the active, deliberate choices that they make. The following major groups specifically teach that sin is an action: the Catholic Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons, Methodist, and Wesleyan traditions. I've never heard that. Wesleyan? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The Church of Nazarene, and Reformed and evangelical denominations. Yeah. Are there any denominations that teach that sin isn't an action? I'm actually curious to see this. If there are any denominations that teach, I'm pretty sure the Roman Catholics don't. I feel like I've read this somewhere before. I'm pretty sure the Roman Catholics don't. Yes, while most Christian groups agree that sin includes bad actions. So yeah, so usually Muslim will either believe that sin is a state of being and just that, or they'll believe that it's both a state of being and your actions, which I feel like for me is just such a lose-lose situation. Like you cannot win in a system like that. You can't win because even if you try to change your heart, you're going to keep doing these actions. So it's like either you're always going to be sinning, you're always going to be sinning, you're always going to feel indebted to this God that, oh my God, he's so hard to reach. Like, anyway, several major traditions teach that sin is fundamentally a state of being, an inherited disease, or a broken condition rather than just a list of bad deeds. These traditions, bad action in these traditions, bad actions are seen merely, as the outward systems of a much deeper underlying spiritual sickness. So the Lutheran and Reformed Calvinist traditions, total depravity. Lutheran and Reformed denominations such as Presbyterians, Lutherans, and Reformed Baptists teach that because of the fall of man, human nature is entirely corrupted by sin from birth. Sin is not just a choice, you make; it is the default state of human heart. We are not sinners because we sin because we are sinners. The Eastern Orthodox. The Eastern Orthodox Church explicitly rejects the Western legal idea that humans inherit the guilt of Adam's sin. Instead, they teach that humanity inherited a corrupted human nature that is prone to physical death and spiritual illness. They often use the Greek word hamartia, which refers to missing the mark. For Orthodox, for the Orthodox, sin is viewed less like a courtroom crime and more like a chronic genetic disease or a state of spiritual blindness that requires healing through Christ. Progressive and liberal Christian movements. Many mainline and progressive Protestant denominations, such as the United Church of Christ, the whoa, this is a word I've never seen before. Episcopal Church, or evangelical Lutherans, place a heavy emphasis on systemic sin. They teach that sin exists in societal structures such as racism, poverty, war, and environmental destruction. In this framework, an individual can participate in or benefit from a sinful system without necessarily committing a malicious personal action, making sin an institutional reality rather than just an individual deed. I like that. I actually really like that. That's a much better view to have. Oh my God. And these are the people who are going to be called like, they're not true Christians. They're not. Oh my days, bro. Anyway, girl, this whole thing is it's just so jarring to me. It's so jarring to me. Oh my God, it's gotten much darker. I did not even realize that. Hold on. Has this helped even a little bit? I hope it has. It's gotten way dark out of nowhere. Okay, so yeah, I actually don't know what I was talking about. I think I was just talking about how like this is just a system in which you can't win. If sin is like your actions, then girl, you can't win. If it's your behavior, then you can change it. But also like if sin is just about your behavior, it's so easy to manipulate. I think that's what I'll get into next. Sorry, just give me a minute. If sin is just about your behavior, right? Or if like behavior is a very, very big thing, like your actions that you as an individual choose consciously to make, um, then I think it's very easy for people to manipulate that, don't you think? Especially considering that we get this divine wisdom from a book that was written by human beings. Um, and I feel like it's necessary to say human men. I think that is necessary. No women were involved in the writing of the Bible, so that's class act right there. Um, but yeah, if it's purely just based on your actions, then it's so easy to manipulate. It's so easy now to use this as a control method and to make people feel bad for doing some things. It is crazy to me. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, if we're talking about the actions as well, you don't see how easily manipulatable that is. Like, for example, like apparently the word homosexual being added into the Bible in the 1940s by Americans. And before that, it wasn't a word that necessarily meant what we now in 2026 know homosexuality to be. right? Apparently, it used to mean, or like the word that was in the Bible originally meant any adult sleeping with a child, like a, so basically a, like, yeah, that was what it was, like pedophilia. That's what it basically meant, and they changed it to mean something else. This is something I actually have never googled before. I so let me actually just like, I'm gonna search what was the word homosexuality changed. Homosexuality's definition changed in the Bible, or was a whole new word, or was the or the original word. Oh my god, I can't spell. Omitted, and a whole new word was added all together. Guys, why can't I spell? So I've asked, was the word homosexuality's definition changed in the Bible, or was the original word omitted and a whole new word was added altogether? Okay, let me just read this. I'm sorry, I'm reading an AI summary. I don't really care. I'm sorry. No, the direct answer is that a new English word was added altogether because the word homosexual did not exist when the original texts were written. It appeared for the very first time in any Bible translation on February 11th, 1946, in the Revised Standard Version. Rather than changing a definition, translators combined two highly debated ancient Greek words into this single modern English term. Okay. This linguistic shift is the subject of intense debate among historians, linguists, and theologians. The breakdown of what happened involves specific textual changes. In 1 Corinthians 6:9 and 1 Timothy 1:10, the original Greek text uses two distinct words that the 1946 RSV translators merged into homosexual. Malakoi literally translates to soft or effeminate. Um, the In the ancient world, it was often used to describe luxury, a lack of self-control, or the passive partner in a sexual relationship. Arsenokoitai, a compound word created by combining arsen, which means male, and koite, which means bed. How the verse changed over time. Because these ancient Greek words do not have a direct single word English equivalent, translations have varied widely throughout history. In 1534, Luther's German Bible translated arsenokoitai as girl. How would I even read this word? Which explicitly means boy molester or pedersat. In 1611, the King James Version translated the words separately as effeminate and abusers of themselves with mankind. Interesting. In 1946, the Revised Standard Version combined both terms into the single modern word homosexuals. In 1971, RSV update, following intense pushback from biblical scholars who argued homosexual was an inaccurate translation. The RSV team actually changed it again to sexual perverts. However, by then, other modern translations had already adopted the word homosexual. Oh my goodness. The two sides of the debate. The discovery of this 1946 translation shift, widely highlighted in the documentary 1946, the mistranslation that I should watch that. The mistranslation that shifted a culture has divided scholars into two main camps. The progressive and affirming view, scholars in this camp argue that the original verses were targeting pederasty, pederasty, exploitative relationships between adult men and young boys, prostitution, or non-consensual sexual abuse common in the Roman Empire. They argue that inserting a word that defines a modern consensual sexual orientation is a massive historical and cultural mistranslation. Yes. The traditional and conservative view, scholars in this camp argue that even though the word homosexual is new, the concept is ancient. They point out that the Greek word arsenokoitai combines the exact Greek words used in the Septuagint. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Septuagint, got no idea. The Greek Old Testament. For Leviticus 18:22 and 20:13, you shall not lie with a male as with a woman. Therefore, they argue the translation is a faithful summary of Paul's intent to prohibit all same-sex sexual activity. Interesting. Interesting stuff. Wow, I actually that's crazy. Like they just straight up added it. Or they mistranslated it. But girl, judging by how things were in 1946, in this is America, right? I'm more inclined to believe that they added it for their own, to fit their own narrative. That's what I'm more inclined to believing. Anyway, I've just been, this is just the things that have been spiraling in my mind recently. I'm just like, wow, this whole thing is just so, it's so jarring to me. I don't know, maybe I should study theology. Maybe I should. I don't even know what theology even is. I can't even define to you what that is. I just know it's the study of religion. The study of religion. No, it's not even the study of religion. Theology is a systematic and rational study of God, the divine and religious truth, derived from Greek words theos and logos. Theos, which means God, logos or logos, word or study. It seeks to understand the nature of religious beliefs, sacred texts, and the relationship between the divine and humanity. Interesting. Maybe I should get a bit of a base idea what theology is. But anyway, yeah, I just think that, I don't know, like the Bible is just a bit divine truth. Really, we couldn't have found another way, like to pass on this divine truth to human beings years later that wouldn't cause this much confusion and this much manipulation. Like, let's be so serious. And then people who say things like, oh, but in the end, God will prevail and he will punish those who did. Oh my God, like, when is this said justice that you guys keep talking about? This justice that people keep talking about. This, or eventually, in the end, but when is this end coming? We keep pushing the goalpost every single time. The end is near. The end is near. When is this end coming? When is this justice being served? When is this said end coming? You know what I mean? It just feels like it never comes because people have been waiting for it for years, for centuries. Okay, no one has been waiting for centuries because no one has been alive for centuries. But what I'm saying is, it has been preached for centuries that it, like, what are we doing? You know, what are we doing? Truly, it makes no sense to me. I just, whew, child. There's also something else that I was thinking about is like, if sin is like action, right? No, I wasn't thinking about that. Sorry, I was thinking about like how Christianity and a lot of the conservative understandings and understandings of Christianity just make so much sense in a very in our world that we live in. I think Christianity really thrives perfectly because of how the world is set up, like in a world where, you have to work to live. You have to work to survive. You have to earn to live. You have to do labor to live. It makes so much sense that people believe in this idea, or are just very pushed or very moved, very emotionally moved by this idea of like, yes, I have to earn my way to heaven. And another thing is like, oh my days, let's actually talk about this. The fact that people are so enticed by this idea of going to heaven, a place where there'll be no suffering, there'll be no anything. The streets are made of gold, and it's all these riches, and you'll never lack, you never what. And they think that they have to work so much, and they have to pour everything that they have into a religion, or pour everything that they have into their faith and their religion and their church, some of them, or into their relationship with God. Like, they have to do all this work to earn their way to heaven. It just makes so much sense in the world that we live in, right? I just feel like I think that's why a religion like Christianity, I don't know what other religions are set up similarly to. I think Islam, I think it's the same way, right? Like they also believe in. I don't know how they translate the whole thing of like you do bad things and the only way for you to be right with God is to. I don't know that whole system. I'm so sorry. I really don't know anything about Islam. I really don't. But I'm pretty sure the system is the same. They believe in a heaven and a hell, and you don't do good things, you go to hell. If you do good things, rather if you make yourself right with Allah, then you go to heaven. Is heaven Jannah, something like that? I'm not sure. Again, not very sure. And then hell, I'm not sure at all. And then they have shaitan, that one I know. um that's pretty much my entire knowledge. But just because they're both Abrahamic religions, I would assume that the system is pretty much the same. But anyway, I'm going to talk about Christianity because it's clearly what I know more about. It's how I've been raised. um but yeah, just I feel like it just makes so much sense to live in a system like this, because it aligns so well with the world that we live in, right? You're told that you have to work for your money, and rather work, like you have to work to have good things. You have to earn your way to the good things that you want in life. Like you have to earn these things. And I feel like it makes so much sense that this religion is constantly telling you that you need to earn these good things. Another thing that I think this religion, you need to earn your way to good things. Another thing that I think this religion really does a good job on is preying on your desperation and preying on the right emotions that are bred from the current world that we live in. I think guilt is the number one thing that I think Christianity really preys on. Guilt. It's so good. It really gets you, doesn't it? Like if you live in a world where earning is the only way for you to get good things, working is the only way for you to get good things, and maybe sometimes you don't get those good things, you feel this guilt of not being enough. I don't know if guilt is the right emotion to label this feeling as, but just in feeling like you are not good enough, like you've not done enough, like you need to do more, you can do more, you should do more, more. I need to do more. It makes so much sense that people would interpret. I know that people would believe in this religion that you know really preys on that guilt. That tells you like no, but in this religion you'll always be enough. You always be there's that there's like those are the good ones. I think the people who tell you that you're always enough and that God loves you no matter what you do, but he just wants you to do better. I think those are the nicer ones. There's not the ones who pray on your guilt by saying now you need to give money so that we can pray for you. The accent is because I associate this type of practice with a lot of African countries. But just the way in which, oh my god, it's so crazy to me. It's so crazy. They really prey on your guilt and your desperation and your desire for more. It works so well. I don't know if I've explained myself in a good way. I think I have the idea, but I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, I just think it works so well. It works so well. Like it's so good at making you feel guilty and making you have this desire to keep doing more. um yeah, it has such a way at making you feel. And also sometimes when I think about the sins that are highlighted in the I think the sins that I that come to mind when I just think of like what do Christians consider to be a sin, like what is a sin quickly, like, if I were just told quick fire answers go, I would say homosexuality, divorcing, children disobeying their parents, rather dishonoring their parents, stealing, lying, murder, those kind of things, anything that just harms other people. I think those are things that would come to my mind. And other than the things that harm other people, because I do agree with that, like I don't think anyone should be doing that, but I'm not saying that, oh, because if you do it you go to hell. I'm just saying like just don't do that, because why do you want to harm other people, right? um but especially for those three that I mentioned before: homosexuality, divorce, divorce, babe, divorce, and children, obey your parents. If you do, you will live long. I think that's basically implied that if you don't, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I feel like that does imply that. Um, just the fact that those are the main sins that I feel like people, especially that Christians really focus on. I think those are the main three. I think those are truly the main three, and also just like uh, anyway, let's say sexual sin um is like the number one for sure, And then how can I how can I, what blanket term can I give for like divorce and stuff like that? Could that be sexual sin? I don't think so, because that doesn't really, sexual sin here being adultery, homosexuality for them. Um, what's another one? Being a pedo. I hope that would be being a predator, non-consensual. Um, yeah, I don't really know how to with the divorce, but I think divorce. Okay, at least in my worldview, the way that divorce was presented to me, and the way that Christianity has been taught to me, I divorce is a no, no, no. We don't do that. We don't do that. We stay together until the end, because what God has put together, no man shall put up, shall set apart. So to me, that one is like a very big one for me. It's just, I'd not like to say like I have been told a lot about it, because I'm not really at the age where I'm expected to get married, but still, like, it's just something that I've heard so much. Like, yeah, divorce is just a no, 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 no. We don't, no, 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 no. I remember when I was in primary school, like, I would hear people talking about their parents being divorced. I'm just like, what? They can do that? They're gonna burn in hell. Like, that's what I would literally think. I just thought, like, divorce is like, you, it just cannot happen. It can never. So to me, maybe I'm putting it on a higher pedestal than what most people would say are like the typical sins. I don't know. And then also the children thing, because to me, at least to me personally, the way my parents pushed that verse onto me, oh my goodness, like, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, for this is the first commandment with the promise that you may live a long life. You see, I even have it memorized. Like, it is so crazy. Oh my days, the way that verse was pushed onto us. Pushed onto us. Like, it was pushed onto us. Like, you have to obey your parents. You have to. It is non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. It's the only commandment. Is it the only or the first? The only commandment with a promise. Yes. So, it's just, oh my god. I feel like these sins also, I feel like they just really prey on the easiest people to oppress, in my opinion, which is women and children. And I don't, do you think that's a coincidence? I don't think so. I don't know if that's a coincidence that these are the sins that we tend to push the most. And that's another thing that I was saying with the problem of if sin is purely viewed as an action, or like there's a big emphasis on sin being an action, things that you do, right? Um, things that you choose to do, like that is sin. It's so easy to manipulate. It's so easy to tell people, it's so easy to cherry pick which sins are the worst. You know what I mean? It's so easy to highlight some sins more than the other. It's easy to cherry pick and talk more about certain sins than others. And it's also easy to make people feel guilty for doing these things. It's so, so easy. And then when they feel guilty, what do? They come back to church for prayers, and they're willing to give money for things like that, or they're willing to, because if we're looking at Christianity, we'll have to look at the church and some of the things that churches do, and this are, unfortunately, these are things that churches do, right? They steal from people. They really, a lot of churches steal from people. I don't believe that the church that I've been raised in, I don't think they do that. I don't know. To me, I've always seen this church as like, at least my friends always told me like, oh, our church is a very safe church, like they don't do those kind of things. They're not one of those crazy charismatic churches. But to me, I don't know, maybe they did, and I just never, I don't have the eyes to see that yet. I didn't have the eyes to see that yet. Um, Maybe, but yeah, at least I'm aware that these are things that happen. Like, they lie to people, they manipulate you, so you can give them money, so you can keep coming back and give money and give tithing, and so you can tithe and give offering. Something that I actually recently learned are two different things. I always thought that those were words that you use interchangeably, but it's not. Tithing is like you actually setting aside 10% of your income to give to the church, and then offering is just like a bit extra. Like, if you have some extra money that you want to give during the Sunday service, you give. I did not know this. I thought those are words that you could use interchangeably. Apparently, it's two different concepts. That's crazy. I'm so that's crazy. Like, catch me dead. 10% of my earnings every time I earn some money. 10%. Are you mad? Like, never. I would never do that. Are you mad? Are you actually mad? Um, but yeah, I just, these are just things that I really just think about. I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this is insane. This religion is just, it's such a good, like, it's such a good scam. It's such a good scam. something that I also really want to learn more about is like when people claim to feel the Holy Spirit or feel the Spirit of God, or like the people who claim to feel God, literally they claim to feel Him. I'm really curious to see what non-religious people's counters to that are, because I feel like for me that's the one thing that keeps me, I don't want to say keeps me having faith, but just keeps me like obviously I have all these questions, and like I've mentioned before, like I've said a lot of times in this video, and I've implied it so many times in this video, I think this religion is just absolute bollocks. It's not, it's so unserious. It's there's no way this, it's not as legitimate and as divine as it's set out to be. But I definitely would like to just hear non-religious arguments as to, or non-religious explanations for why people may say they feel the Holy Spirit or they feel God in them. Like, even that statement, it actually makes me cringe so bad. Like, what do you mean you feel God inside you? Babe, that might be a growth. You might be having some cancerous things going on. Like, what do you mean? But yeah, it's very, very interesting. I would like to hear because to me, I've not really actually ever heard anyone talk about that, because a lot of people just jump to religious psychosis, especially on the internet. Like now, a lot of people just use that in people's comments. But I'd actually like to hear someone, study it and explain why some people may say they feel this and what are the others. I watched one video about someone explaining. Oh God, what was the word? It was a really funny sounding word for why people may speak in tongues. Why? Oh, there we go. Glacial, yeah, something like that. Glossolalia. Um, so I watched a video of someone explaining as from a non-religious point of view as to why people may think that they are speaking in this language that only the spirit can understand, or directly from the spirit, and only God can understand, and only the Trinity rather can understand. Um, so that was interesting. I don't really remember much of that video, to be honest with you, because it still was a foreign concept to me. So I would like to learn a little bit more about that, as to why people feel like they actually feel the spirit, and why people, because I mean, if everyone is saying that they feel, especially like if we look at, I'm sure there are Muslims who have said that they have felt God, and there's also Christians who claim the same thing. So it's like, you guys don't also see how they just your religions can't be divine truth if you're both feeling this, right? Like you're both feeling it, and you're both going to use the same arguments to counter each other. So like, what are you doing, bro? Just accept it. Just allow it. Just accept it. Anyway, that's all for me. I've talked so much about this, and my mouth is getting dry. I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten all day. It's 5 p.m. I just want to have a meal. Maybe put on a movie. Put on a film. Gosh, let me stop doing that. How long have I been talking? 51 minutes! Wow. Anyway. These are the things that go on in my head. Like 24. These are the things that go on in my head 24/7. Like, just talking about religion, very, very interesting. Very, very fun stuff to me. Like, genuinely don't even get me started. Or I can go on. I can go on and on and on. But yeah, that's my thoughts. And I hope my thoughts in future will have changed. This video is for future me, for future reference. Like, me in 5 years, will I have found a much more solid answer to my questions and to my, what's the word, doubts? I don't know. But yeah,